Welcome back to The Juggle is Real. I'm Andryanna. Sometimes we have to share the messages that we need ourselves. And this episode is kind of one of those, messages. And the title, of course, is When Things Get Busy, Choose Peace. And it's something that I have been reminded of. And, busy, we can use that word because, of course, that is such a common thing in today's day and age. But we can also say when things get stressful, choose peace. When things get chaotic, choose peace. When things get just crazy, choose peace. And we're in April, and this month often brings a whirlwind of activities. And we've got Easter celebrations coming up and the onset of spring sports. If you've got tryouts happening, or if you're starting, new seasons of activities. And we're also navigating this economic world of complete uncertainty and all of these political events that are making us kind of, scratch our heads a little bit. And in these bustling times, it is so easy to get caught up. It is so easy to feel overwhelmed. And so I thought that I would share some of the things that I'm practicing and some things that I was just recently reminded of, which I'm going to share very quickly coming up. But I'm going to draw inspiration from people who have been really meaningful and helpful to me: Dr. Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, A Course in Miracles. And I just want to take from these to explore how to consciously choose peace amidst the chaos. So let's dive right in.
Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started.
This episode of The Juggle is Real is supported by Lind Canada. Easter is almost here, and it's one of those holidays where tradition meets magic, and of course, chocolate. And that is why I'm so excited to be partnering with Lind to bring some sweet inspiration to your celebrations. The Lind Gold Bunny has been a must-have Easter staple for over 70 years. It's crafted from premium Swiss chocolate, wrapped in signature gold foil, and finished with the classic red ribbon and golden bell. And this year, they've expanded their lineup with new offerings like Gold Bunny Salted Caramel, the Gold Bunny Milk Chocolate Bar, and the delicious Lindor Chocolate Mini Eggs in a larger 180-gram pouch. All perfect for gifting or adding to Easter baskets and, of course, Easter hunts. And to mix timeless traditions with new experiences, Lind has introduced Gold Bunny Hide and Seek, a magical Easter game that invites Canadians to step into the magical world of its iconic Gold Bunny. Just visit lind-gold-bunny.ca to play, find the Gold Bunnies inside their magical home, snap a selfie with the Gold Bunny, and hop out with a coupon to use at lind.ca or your nearest Lind chocolate shop. That's visiting lind-gold-bunny.ca to play. Make Lind part of your Easter this year because the sweetest moments are the ones we enjoy together. You can visit lind.ca or a Lind chocolate shop across Canada to get everything that you need to make your Easter moments both magical and delicious. Now let's get back to the episode. All right, it's that time, that April, beautiful seasonal renewal. However, earlier this week, where I live, we were in another snow globe. We got like a ton of snow. But we've got all of this activity happening in April. We are preparing for family gatherings or egg hunts or, meals or celebrations. We've got Easter right around the corner. We had a quick brief little break, about a week and a half off from the end of our hockey season. And now we're ramping up with pre-skates and tryouts and starting, new sports and activities and registrations for summer and all of this stuff. You feel like you can start to catch your breath and then it starts right back up again. And I know that there are families who are into baseball or lacrosse or soccer, and all of these things are starting to ramp up now. And then we've got on the economic front, we've got all of these very interesting developments happening, and all of these, sort of counter tariffs going on, and just tension adding to this collective stress that we are all feeling. And I'm in Canada, as I know that I've mentioned many times, and there's a lot of political discussions around this federal election that are really intensifying, and the leaders are addressing topics from all sorts of different areas. And you know your friends, your family, people around you, and in social media, there's a lot of opposing views and opinions. And so it was so interesting because over the weekend, I just like something snapped in me, and I just got really upset. And I went on social media, and I've got a few group chats, and there was a family chat, and I was just like, oh, I haven't seen this chat in a while, and I'm going to catch up. And I was, sort of like in an afternoon when I had a little bit of time. And then I started like scrolling back, and then I was scrolling back and scrolling back. And it was just all of these reels and video clips and all of this like really aggressive information about politics and important topics, but they were in like a really shared in a really like hostile way. And I just was like, okay, I can't. I literally do not have the capacity for this. And so I wrote a message, and maybe it wasn't my most, you know, kindly written message, but I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm leaving this chat, and I don't want to have like these very aggressive conversations. If you want to message me with love, if you want to send me a message with information that you think is going to be helping me in my life to help me make decisions about these things that are going to impact our lives, I certainly want to see these, but I'm not here for the back and forth and the hostility and like just like the absolute craziness of opposing opinions. And so I literally left this group chat. And, funnily enough, when we need to see these messages, they just randomly pop up. And so earlier this week, had to restart my computer, or maybe it shut itself down. Sometimes it does that and it has this mind of its own. Although I'm not so great at like doing all of the updates that you're supposed to do, I kind of just ignore all those. So anyway, my computer restarted, and then in the notes section, somehow this old note from like 4 years ago popped up. Okay, in the notes section, and it was some notes that I had jotted down for an episode that I released right before Easter 4 years ago on the Juggle Israel. And what's so interesting about this is it was around Easter. I had recorded it during the busy morning hustle and bustle before I had to get my kids to school. Zach was just a little teeny infant baby. And so it was just kind of funny because it was all about, when things get busy, and it was really Easter focused. But it was like, what can we do? And it was to essentially find those moments that you can come back to and to choose peace. And I was like, okay, I needed that. I needed that message. And there are a lot of points in there that I wanted to kind of just remind myself about. And so I thought we could do that together, because if we're looking at the facts, what is true for, the next little while, like there is a lot of output happening in the coming days, in the coming weeks, and if we're celebrating Easter or we are doing the whole egg hunt thing, there's going to be places to go and people to see and things to do, and your schedule might be filling up or it might be full. Things might be more busy than usual, and you might start to feel just that strain of additional tasks and stressors. And even though these things in many cases can be really happy things and fun celebrations and exciting, renewals and starts and beginnings for, activities, but during these times it's easy to forget that coming inward and that finding of peace. And so this is the reminder that I need that that we matter, right? That you matter, that your time really is so valuable. Like time is the most valuable currency that we have. And so I want to talk about this philosophy of choosing peace, even in the midst of chaos, even when you look at a group chat and there's like 47 messages that are all super stressful for you. Dr. Wayne Dyer emphasized, and he is famously quoted for saying this quote that is part of A Course in Miracles, which is, "I can choose peace rather than this." And it really does come back to me often. And it's something that was shared with me a few years ago. And it's just one of these phrases, call it an affirmation, if you will. But in those moments when things start to pile up or when you're feeling that anxiety, it's realizing that we do have a choice, right? Like we do have the ability to make the decision to choose peace. And we can respond to the external events, to the things happening in our lives, to the things outside of us in ways from that perspective of choosing peace, even if it means to leave, to remove yourself physically, walk out of the room, leave the group chat, put something on mute, set a boundary. It tells us and it reinforces that our peace is our number one priority, right? And so when we are constantly coming back to that choice, I can see peace instead of this. It's suggesting that it's a perspective that we can adopt. And that is really what A Course in Miracles is teaching us. And Marianne Williamson reminds us, and this is a quote, "Everything we do is infused with energy." I'm going to start that again. Quote, "Everything we do is infused with the energy with which we do it. If we're frantic, life will be frantic. If we're peaceful, life will be peaceful." So I'm going to read it one more time. Everything we do is infused with the energy with which we do it. So the energy that we're putting towards what we're doing in our lives, if we're doing it with stress and with chaos and with hustle, all of those things that we're doing will feel chaotic and stressful and like we're hustling and grinding. It's going to be frantic. But if we are choosing peace and making a decision from peace, even if we're still engaging in the same activities, if we're doing it with a perspective of peace, then those things that we're doing will become more peaceful. Does that make sense? I think it's just like sometimes we feel very, I guess, just like we have no control. And because there's so much in our lives that we truly don't have control over. And when we're talking about, these trade wars, and we're talking about, the markets crashing, and we're talking about all of these things, we have very little control over what's happening. However, when we are focusing on the things that we can control, and that's really just ourselves, right? When we're focusing on how we are responding to what's going on around us, then we can adopt that more peaceful way of living, even though Nothing has changed externally, even though literally everything and everyone might be the exact same. When we are choosing peace, we are selecting how we are responding. And I think that's, I think, really comforting. And it is for me anyway. And so, what are some practical ways? How can we actually do this? How can we strategize embracing peace amidst busyness? I think we can. And how do we do this? I think it's really about building in moments for yourself so that you can come back to peace, so you can remind yourself that you want to choose peace. And I think it's great to just scatter it in throughout your day to ensure that you're allowing peace into your days, into your Easter celebrations. Maybe, the family gathering can be a little bit overwhelming, or, maybe you're feeling a little stressed out. And I had a friend text me that she was already having nightmares about hockey tryouts, and she had a bad dream and she woke up in a sweat because her son didn't make the team. And it's like, come back to that moment and build it in for yourself. And so it can be super easy, right? And it can be easy, but it has to be intentional, because it's especially important to continue to be of service to yourself during the times when we really are serving others, serving so many people around us. We're stepping out of our normal routine. So no matter what it is, like if we take, Easter celebrations, for example, right? Like, you might be tempted to revisit those old paths and those old patterns, or maybe taking on more than you want to, or going back to those people pleasing tendencies and being that yes person or that overachiever, or you're agreeing to things that don't really serve you, aren't really helpful for your family, but you just don't want to set a boundary or say no to protect your peace. You might be traveling, you might be visiting family, you might be preparing for the Easter Bunny's arrival, you might be hosting meals at your home. Like, I joke about this all the time, but like, truly, ironing is stressful for me. I do not enjoy it. And so when I think of, like, doing things like an Easter celebration or like a festive family dinner, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to iron my kids' pants. And like, that just seems stressful. So I try to catch myself. But in these times, I invite you to pause and then have that little moment of reconnection. Reconnect to yourself and remember that mantra that you can choose peace in the moment. And remember that your needs really matter, because we have the power of choice. In a world where we have so little power over what's going on around us, we have the power to choose to find peace in the moment. Even in the midst of chaos or challenges and difficulties, we don't have to wait for external factors to dictate our own happiness. And how do we do this? Well, we can have those mindful pauses, taking those very short breaks to breathe deeply, to like put both of your feet on the ground and truly just ground yourself in the present moment. And it's one of those nervous system regulation tools that you can do even in the midst of traffic, right? Like, you can take that moment and just come back to right now. Here you are listening to this podcast in this moment in time. You are safe in this moment. You can look around you to see what is around you. I'm sitting at this table. I've got my feet planted on the floor. I can breathe the air that's around me. I can look out the window and see the blue sky and really just have that mindful pause. Okay. And of course, in those moments when things can seem overwhelming and seem really hectic, it can be really challenging to do that. But when you start, even taking, like, when your kids are screaming around you and like, things are crazy and you're trying to get out the door and you don't want to be late for work, like a 3-second deep inhale, like that deep belly breath, release that pressure, roll your shoulders back, and just exhale all of that stress out. It can be just really incredible in the moment. of course, another thing we can do to put strategy behind choosing peace is to have a boundary in place, to prioritize tasks and to learn to say no when necessary to prevent overcommitment. So if you know that your schedule is really filling up, maybe you want to block out some time now and be really, really firm in, maybe it's your kids' bedtimes. And so you don't want to be out late for family dinners, or maybe you have kids who are still napping and that time is really sacred to you, and working your schedule for what's going to suit you and your family best. If you're doing tryouts or doing new spring things, maybe you need to have more buffer times to allow for that peace. Maybe it's creating more ease in your routine. So maybe your schedule is full, but how can you lessen the pressure? Is it getting takeout? Is it having, pre-made meals? Is it asking someone for help? What are the things that we can do to be able to prioritize what's most important, to release what is not serving us, and to say no with love, with kindness, to really protect your peace. Another thing we can do is that digital detox, and that's allocating maybe specific times to disconnect from electronic devices, reducing that information overload, saying goodbye to the accounts or the chats or the places that are making you feel really overwhelmed. It's making me think of on the weekend, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm sharing this to let you know that it happens and we all need to give ourselves a little bit of grace here and then learn from what might be seen as a mistake. So I'm going to share on Sunday, I was doing some work in the morning, and I don't normally work on Sundays anymore, but if I have to, I do, right? But a program that I was using for my podcast videos to help me create clips, it wasn't working. And so I was a little bit ticked off that this service that I had paid for was not serving me. And so I had to go through some video clips and put a reel together the good old fashioned way. And it took me longer than I wanted it to. And it was sort of bleeding into my morning. So then I was trying to make bacon and eggs while doing this. And I was trying to work while also doing things for my family. Inevitably, my kids were not getting along. One was hungry, one was fighting. We had scheduled a play date for one of them, and he knew what time his play date was starting. And then so he was continually asking me. And then I just reacted, right? Did I choose peace in the moment? I did not. And I yelled and I snapped, and I had just hit my limit, right? Looking back, I know that the one piece that had really caused this overwhelm was not my child, but he was just like that final piece in the puzzle that made everything crumble, right? But it was doing the work and trying to get things done in a limited amount of time and things, not working out. Had I put it down, it's not the end of the world if, the reel didn't go out Sunday morning. If it didn't look as polished as I wanted it to, I could have set it down. I could have came back to it. So I tell you this because I know we're often trying to juggle many things. And I did, my son felt really bad, and we were driving to the friend's house and to the play date, and he was apologizing to me, and it crushed me, it broke my heart. And so we had a moment of repair and we talked it through, and I think we were both really feeling better after. Gosh, I'm tearing up just telling you the story. But these are the things that can make it pile up. So what can we release? Can we do a digital detox? Can we remove some of those stressors to allow for what's more important, And then I think the final thing that I will just share, what is going to work for you. And that is the whole point of the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner, is to help you and guide you to choose the modes that are going to feel best for you, that are going to be authentic practices for you to be able to come back to yourself, to be able to choose peace in those moments, to be able to feel that deep sense of gratitude for all of the many, many good things that are happening in your life, and to celebrate the incredible things that you are doing even amidst all of the craziness that's happening. And so having a practice where you're journaling, even if it is once a week, and I do this on weekends, where I do like some notes and some pages, and I try to go back through the week, because it's so easy to forget the good things, because we're always just like, you know, just focusing on what's bad, or focusing on our worries, or focusing on the future, and focusing on the things we can't control. But can we go back from the week and just be like, or just the day before bed, and be like, wow, you know what? I got out for my walk and it was a sunny day, and the feeling of the sun on my face, even though we just had like a crazy snowstorm, like that sunshine was everything. And I'm so grateful that I paused on a Tuesday and I spent 30 minutes going for a walk, like coming back to those moments, reflecting on those positives to shift our focus from the stressors to our blessings. Because when we do that, we just realize, gosh, we have so much to be grateful for. And there are so many blessings that we can really choose peace on. And it helps us to find our peace. It brings us back to a sense of peace. And of course, like I mentioned, the walks, like that physical activity, when things are stressful, being able to release that in a physical way is so good for you. It is so good to engage in movement, exercise, yoga, or walking, or lifting weights, or Zumba dancing, whatever it is, to release that built up tension, that stretching, that breathing. All of it is so life-changing. And I know that you've had those moments where you didn't want to do it. You were feeling grouchy, you forced yourself, and 5 minutes into it, you're like, holy hell, I feel so much better. So, like, how can we integrate peace into our daily life through these strategies? By looking at the moments. If we have a chance to pause, we're standing in line at the grocery store, instead of being stressed because there's 3 people ahead of us and it's Costco and it's craziness. Like, can we, even with all of that around us, remember that we can choose peace, and like feel like, you know what? I can't blast through the people that are ahead of me in line right now, or I can't change what's happening, but I can center myself. I can think a better thought. I can do one little thing that's going to make this feel easier, and just have that intention to remain peaceful regardless of the external circumstances, to surround ourselves with supportive people, or supportive, even, places on the internet in digital areas that are encouraging that calm and that centered mindset. And the focus is on that peace and all of the beauty that surrounds us. And then I think it's really just remembering that you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And when we're choosing peace, it is that ongoing practice. It requires a level of patience and self-compassion and grace. And you're not always going to get it 100% right. And you might find yourself on a Sunday morning trying to fry bacon and trying to post a reel with your son who wants to go on his play date, and you might snap. But it's reminding yourself and coming back to the repair and the reminder that, we can choose differently next time. So I think it's really about what you need in the moment, and then allowing yourself to have it. So yeah, I think that's pretty well it. But in parting, maybe we can all consider this, that above all else, just realizing that when we look back, we can look back with gratitude, right? And we can remember how things went, and what's going to stand out. So if we look at Easter as an example, when you think to how you want to remember your Easter celebrations and the egg hunts, or your family gatherings, are you going to remember that everything was picture perfect, color coordinated, totally beautiful theme to the nines, a brunch that Martha Stewart made, with an apron and your kids in perfectly pressed and ironed clothes, robot brunch? Or do you want to think back and be like, wow, there was genuine joy. There was connection. We had beautiful conversation. And the feeling that you're overcome with is just love that you were able to share with your family, that you were able to enjoy the moments of finding, chocolate eggs with your kids, or, being with friends and being in the moment. And if you're tempted to get carried away with all of those tasks, I get it. But I want to remind you that if you're going to be feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, resentful, I want you to shift that perspective and ask yourself, and you might have to remind yourself in the moment, like, what really matters here? And how can you let it be easy? How can you choose peace in the moment? And maybe there's going to be a crumb on your floor and your baseboards are like covered in a tiny speck of dust. But are there things that you can let go of to let it feel easier, to choose peace? Are there areas where you can bring in support or ways to make yourself and your needs matter amidst serving everyone around you? So focus on that. And I promise the peace will flow. Okay. And as April unfolds with this myriad of activities and, perhaps challenges, please remember that amidst all of that external noise, you truly possess inside of you so much power and strength to choose peace. So if you incorporate some of these mindful practices or shift your perspective a little, I feel that you can really navigate this season with a better sense of grace and that peaceful feeling and just, the ability to let it flow. So I think that's it. That's it for me for now. But if you like this one, you know what to do. Rate the episode, write me a review on Apple Podcasts, share this with a friend, someone who could use this message during a busy time, and make sure that you're subscribed. Come on back. Join me for the next episode. We've got Kat and Nat on the podcast coming up, and it's such a great chat. Until then, wishing you all of the best as you juggle all of the things. Take good care.